Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today and your interest in learning about becoming a Bee City or Campus USA. My name is Carly Hirschman, and I'm the Community Engagement Specialist at Xerces, and I help assist the Bee City and Campus USA programs. And I'm going to pass it off to Laura that I'm here with today.
Hi there, I'm Laura Rost. I'm the National Coordinator of Bee City USA and Bee Campus USA for the Xerces Society. And I'll let Matthew introduce himself.
Oh, thanks. Hi, everybody. I'm Matthew Shepherd. I head up the outreach and education team at Xerces, which includes the B Campus B City USA program. And so I'm here to support Laura and Carly and answer any questions if needed. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. I'll just go ahead and start sharing my screen and we'll get into our presentation. One moment. All right. Okay. Are you guys seeing the right view on that?
Looks great, Laura.
Okay. All right. So this presentation is on how to become a Bee City or Bee Campus USA affiliate. And just to kick things off, I wanted to share kind of our agenda for this presentation. We're going to talk a little bit about who Xerces is, about Bee City USA, the commitments of the program, how you can apply, and then we're going to share some campaign tips and how to build a strong team. And then we'll get into some examples of outreach, habitat, and pesticide reduction. And these will be examples that you can take away with you, even if you choose not to become a Bee City or Bee Campus. But these are examples from our affiliates of their great work. And lastly, we'll share some free resources that can help you apply or just help your community be more pollinator friendly. So first off, the Xerces Society houses Bee City and Bee Campus. It's pronounced Xerces usually. There's a few variations. And we are a science-based nonprofit that protects wildlife through the conservation of native invertebrates in their habitats. And we have about 100 staff throughout the US. And we work on all different issues around invertebrate conservation, from policy making to pesticide reduction, a lot of work on pollinators on farms, and then we work on a lot of endangered species, including freshwater mussels, fireflies, monarch butterflies, all sorts of different species. So if you're interested, check out our website, xerces.org, for more information. We're named after the Xerces blue butterfly pictured here, which is the first invertebrate in the US known to go extinct due to human development. Beautiful little blue butterfly. So you probably already know that pollinators are quite important, but one of the reasons they're so important is that 85% approximately of plant species around the globe require pollinators to reproduce. So nuts, seeds, all that sort of stuff, berries, many of them come from pollinators helping us out. And about 1 in 3 mouthfuls of food and drink that we consume, we can thank insect pollinators for providing those delicious and wonderful foods for us. I like to think that like all the fun foods are pretty much thanks to pollinators, like tomatoes, blueberries, almonds, peppers. Our food is much more colorful and fun with pollinators and healthier. One thing I just wanted to clarify, we focus on native invertebrates and native pollinators. That does not include honeybees. Honeybees were introduced to the US from Europe and are kind of more of an agricultural product and important to agriculture, but they're not native and they're not actually endangered. And hives are struggling for sure, but we have a lot of honeybees still. And honeybees actually compete with native bees and other pollinators, and they can spread diseases and parasites to those native species. And another important thing to keep in mind is that one honeybee hive requires about 1 to 5 acres of flowers. So if you're adding a hive, you really need to make sure that you're adding flowers because that's a lot of mouths to feed. But the nice thing about Bee City and Bee Campus and all of our pollinator conservation work is you don't have to buy bees, you don't have to build a hive, you don't need to like have hands-on management. With native bees, if you grow it, they will come. You don't have to, um, pay or maintain a hive each year. So just to give you a sense of things, a lot of times people think of, oh, maybe there's like a few bee species in the U.S., but actually in the U.S. we have over 3,600 species of bees, and worldwide there's 20,000 species. So it's a whole wide world of bees, and they're all different shapes and sizes. They have different life cycles, different tongue lengths even. So they all have their own unique role in the ecosystem. So it's the diversity of bees that's so important to protect. So where can we find native bees? About 30% of native bees nests in crevices and pithy stems and little hollows. Um, and even like hollow stems. And they're considered, oftentimes we say tunnel nesting. So there's like, for instance, like mason bees and leafcutter bees. Leafcutter bees actually cut up like a circle of a leaf or a petal, and they roll it up and insert it inside of a little tunnel. And they lay in each little rolled up leaf or petal, there's a bee egg and what they call bee bread, which is a mixture of pollen and nectar to feed that baby as it develops. So it's like a little cigar with a little baby bee inside. But the majority of native bees actually nest underground. About 70% are ground nesting, and about 90% of all native bees are solitary nesting. So that means they're not living in a group. They're individually nesting. It's just one female doing everything on her own, as far as laying eggs go. And this is a diagram of one nest structure you might see for a native bee, but there's many different structures. But so oftentimes these nests can be pretty subtle, or they get mistaken for something else, like maybe an ant nest or something else. But so they're generally pretty gentle. So they may be all around you, but you don't get stung or anything like that. They're just hanging out, doing their thing, and laying their eggs underground. So with those sort of nest types, we can actually have quality native bee nesting habitat all over a landscape, all throughout an urban or suburban area, in a park or in your backyard. So there's so many different ways these nests can be all around us. So we can create quality pollinator habitat in a very relatively subtle way just by planting good plants and protecting these sites. So it's kind of a fun way you can kind of like have all this great stuff happening in your ecosystem if you just kind of look around and you create these opportunities for bees to find good homes. And as you probably know, pollinators are in decline. Globally, about 40% of pollinator species may be at risk of extinction in the coming years. And in North America, about a quarter of bumblebee species are in decline. So this is something that urgently needs to be addressed. We do know the drivers of pollinator declines. It's a multi-factor issue. One issue is habitat and biodiversity loss and habitat degradation. Pesticide use, and that includes insecticides, herbicides, and fungicides. Diseases and pathogens, and that also would include parasites. And climate change. And it's not just one of these factors affecting one bee species. Many of these factors in combination create even more threat. So if a bee is exposed to high levels of pesticides, it may not be able to navigate to quality habitat because there's not as much of that quality habitat around. Higher temperatures can make it harder for them to survive. So all of these things kind of play into each other. So we really need to be addressing all of these issues if we want bees to be here. The good news is we know how we can help pollinators. This is kind of the foundation of all of our pollinator conservation work at the Xerces Society. We have kind of 4 core principles that we ask people to try to take on to help pollinators. One is to plant native plants that flower throughout the growing season, so there's consistent floral feeding resources for those variety of native pollinators. And then we ask that you protect natural nesting sites. So that can be bare ground, dead leaves, stems, logs. We ask that you reduce or eliminate pesticide use. And then finally, we can't take these actions alone. We need more people to get involved. So we need you to spread the word. And this can look like posting signs, talking to your friends and neighbors, writing an article for your local newsletter, talking to your elected officials. There's so many approaches. This is the foundation of our Bee City and Bee Campus work. So through Bee City and Bee Campus, communities are organizing together to take on these issues. And originally, Bee City was an independent nonprofit. It was founded by Phyllis Stiles in 2012, and then Xerces adopted it in 2018. And just since 2019, our affiliates have engaged more than 2.4 million people in pollinator conservation. They have created or enhanced 22,000 acres of habitat and held over 13,000 events. And I think what really makes Bee City and Bee Campus special is these programs play to each community's own unique strengths and interests. So the commitments are relatively straightforward and simple, but the way people carry it out really embodies the personality of that community. So we're not dictating to you a really strict style of activity. So it really is a chance for you to integrate pollinator conservation into the personality of your community. And another thing that I think really makes the program special is we're focusing on progress, not perfection. Everyone can do something, and we all need to take action where we can. But these problems can feel overwhelming. So we just need to chip away and keep working and keep moving our communities forward to be healthier. So, that's the idea, and that's how we support you, is we're trying to get you to make progress where you can, when you can. So our Bee City and Bee Campus affiliates are numerous. We're all over the US. It kind of looks like a population density map, I feel like. And you see a lot of clusters of affiliates, and that's not because we're recruiting heavily in those areas. It's actually usually that we have a lot of we have our Bee cities and Bee campuses that tend to overlap, and we get a lot of them recruiting each other and talking about their good work with their neighbors. And so interest spreads just through word of mouth. Currently, we have 260 Bee cities, 226 Bee campuses, for a total of 486 cities and campuses in 48 states, plus Washington, D.C., and Puerto Rico. And I'll go ahead and kick it over to Carly to take over talking about the commitments of the program.
Thank you so much, Laura. So now I'm going to run through the commitments and application process of Bee City and Campus USA and talk a little bit about the differences between the two. So first we have the committee. Your committee should invite broad-based involvement and buy-in. Every committee will be different, but should include individuals with experience and interests that will help the committee complete the commitments. We ask that landscape or grounds or park staff be involved as is appropriate. The committee can be formed out of an already existing committee. You do not need to start from scratch when it comes to your committee. And Laura is going to take us into more detail about committee makeup in just a minute. And next we have events. Each year, at least one pollinator habitat project and outreach event. Events may be workshops on pollinators, planting pollinator gardens, presentations about pollinators, garden tours, and guided pollinator walks. Films about pollinators. We have partnered with film distribution companies on certain documentaries and offered those to our affiliates in the past. Pest management workshops and things like that. So Bee City encourages affiliates to take advantage of nationally or internationally designated days, weeks, or months to bring attention to pollinator conservation. Yesterday was World Bee Day. Other examples include Earth Day, Moth Week, and Pollinator Week. And then we have renewal. The renewal consists of reporting and paying a fee. So each year after the first calendar year, that period is February 1st to May 31st, and the fee is between $100 to $500 based on population or enrollment, student enrollment. And the fee can be waived based on a form if it's a barrier to your participation. We would love for you to fill out that form because we don't want that to be a barrier to anyone joining our program. And so, for example, if you were certified today, your first renewal period would take place from February 1st to May 31st of 2028. So we want it to be a full calendar year from when you were to have passed since you were certified. And then next is in the first few years what we'd like you to accomplish. So a web page with a recommended list of native pollinator plants and native plant vendors, as well as an integrated pest management plan for your city or campus. You are welcome to add a Bee City USA or Bee Campus USA page to an existing website or develop a separate website or social media pages. The requirement of posting your Bee City or Bee Campus information on a publicly accessible website is intended to make your pollinator conservation efforts transparent and broad-based and engaging your whole community. Your webpage should include, at a minimum, a copy of your adopted resolution for city affiliates and links to the National Bee City USA website, contact information for your committee, chair, and liaison for city affiliates, annual reports from previous years, which we will provide you, and your recommended native plant species list, plant supplier list, and integrated pest management plan. You can visit the Xerces Society's Pollinator Conservation Resource Center to see our regional pollinator plant lists, native seed and vendors, and more. We also have an entire IPM plan toolkit. Resources include IPM plan checklist and template IPM plan examples and case studies, and many examples of non-chemical management tools for outdoor landscapes. We also have staff available to review your IPM plans. We do not grade your IPM plans. We only ask that you have one, but providing feedback is something that we do offer if you'd like it. And moving on to signage, once you are certified, Xerces provides artwork for your street sign, and the affiliates are responsible for the printing. Local print shops can likely print signs for you, but you should check with your municipality or school to see if there's a preferred vendor or internal sign making department that you have. And then here's where we break off a little bit between the two. So for campuses only, Bee Campus USA affiliates commit to incorporate information about native pollinators and pollinator conservation into courses or continuing education opportunities. And they also offer service learning projects related to enhancing pollinator habitat each year. So that's an additional few commitments for campuses. And then you can go to the next slide.
Sorry, it's just taking a second here. There we go.
Great. And so now let's talk about the differences in the application process. As we mentioned, both campuses and cities will form a committee, but their memberships will differ a little bit. For cities, the committee will be sponsored by a city department or a nonprofit with the city's approval and needs to include a city staffer in the liaison position. For campuses, the committee should include a mix of students, faculty, and staff, and at least one member that is grounds or landscaping staff. The application, once you have a login, you'll be able to access everything that you need in order to apply, and it's a relatively short application. And for the resolution, we want to make it very clear to applicants to submit their draft resolution to us for approval before getting it passed by their city council, because it's much easier to make edits at this point, and it's difficult to do once the resolution has been adopted and signed. And for campuses, they are going to need to gain approval from the president or chancellor before we can accept their application, get them certified. And again, the fee, pay an application fee of $100 to $500. And as we mentioned, that fee can be waived. We have a form for that. Next slide. And then the fee chart, pretty self-explanatory. It's based for cities on your city's population and for campuses on your student enrollment. And some application frequently asked questions. What communities can apply? For Bee cities, it's municipalities, cities, towns, townships, unincorporated counties, and quasi-municipalities. For Bee campuses, it's universities and non-high school colleges, including community colleges. How long does an application take? It completely depends. The average is 3 to 6 months, but the range can be anywhere from 2 weeks to 3 years. So we really see a lot of variation. And then some of the benefits of becoming certified with Bee City or Campus USA is that you can learn from Xerces' team of pollinator conservation experts, reducing harmful pesticides and adopting least toxic ways to tackle home and garden pest problems makes our cities and campuses much safer. It also leads to healthier people. Studies have shown that contact with nature improves emotional and mental health. And flowering habitat enhances your community and supports the pollinators vital to the health of our world, which is a benefit of both beautiful landscaping and resilient cities. You can connect people with nature. You can increase love and support of the amazing diversity of plant and pollinator species in your community. You can build a stronger community, bringing neighbors together around a positive shared cause and connect with communities across the country that share that same vision. You can support local farmers by raising awareness of how our food grows and improve local food production through increased pollination. You can grow small businesses, help local businesses, including native plant nurseries, especially pollinator-friendly landscapers and other bee-friendly businesses. You will be mailed a welcome package when you first become certified, so you get immediate access to free pollinator conservation and outreach resources. You get a customized logo and street sign artwork and access to our online affiliate portal. Then you also get access to training and promotional kits from Bee City USA. And now we're going to switch gears a little bit and talk about campaigning and some of our tips for grassroots campaigning. First of all, we don't want you to bite off more than you can chew, so to speak, or become overwhelmed. So you can definitely pace yourself and start small. A good first step can be to introduce yourself to local leadership, since you'll need leadership approval as part of your application. And there's such a thing as grass tops versus grassroots campaigning. So for cities, an example of grass tops campaigning would be to go to your mayor, city councilor, or a city department head. And then grassroots could be leaders of garden clubs, or even school kids to get the ball rolling. For campuses, grass tops might look like president, department head, or head of facilities or landscaping, whereas grassroots could be tapping into a class project, a student club, or a professor of a certain subject, such as biology. And the biggest thing here is to create partnerships, right? You can ask to conduct informational interviews. You can attend committee meetings, parks committee, beautification committee, or city council meetings. Really get your foot in the door and just make your presence known. Grow a diverse network of supporters and support their projects as well. Demonstrate the value and benefits, all those community benefits we just discussed on the last slide. And define who your champions are. So Kyle Rosland with the Vancouver Bee Project, who is an active member of their Bee City Committee, he coined this term city champion that we like to use. So identify those folks who are very active in your community that can help you with this initiative and be a good partner. And you can just get started and jump in with events and habitat. Show leaders they are already meeting some of the commitments. You can attend existing planting or weeding events and show participants or organizers that they are helping meet the commitments. In this way, you can piggyback on other volunteer groups or habitat projects. Grassroots campaigning does not need to be rushed. Assume everyone is working hard and they are doing their best. Keep in mind a lot of cities and campuses have limited time and money. And you want to take it from the viewpoint of how can we make their jobs easier or help them reach their goals through this certification. You don't want to come in blaming anyone or saying you should be doing this instead of what you're doing. Definitely tone matters when you're approaching your city council or your university or campus. And then if you're hitting a wall, you can consider other paths or departments or city councilors. Just because you've hit a little speed bump doesn't mean you need to give up on pursuing the certification. There's lots of different paths and there's lots of interested people in your community that you may not have found yet. And petitions and letters of support can help. Vancouver, Washington is an example of a city that had a very successful petition that led to their becoming certified. And then creating a coalition and networking, you want to get multiple interest groups involved. There are no rules. It's very open-ended and you can get creative with it. And involving multiple interest groups helps with long-term resiliency, the larger your buy-in. Even if certain people leave or move on or interests change, the work can continue when you have more people and groups involved. And you may not need to do this step. It's not always necessary. The certification may be a natural fit and might match some of the things that are already taking place in your city or campus community. And then in terms of who the people are that you should be networking with, if you're a city, it can include Boy or Girl Scouts, K through 12, Rotary clubs, churches, business leaders, different nonprofits, community health and beautification groups, and bird and native plant groups. And if you're a campus, it can include campus radio or newspaper, student garden or farm or greenhouse staff, fraternities and sororities, student council, the head of a relevant department, or the vice president or president's office. And then in terms of outreach, outreach is a great tool to use when you're campaigning. This is more of places that you should be doing your outreach versus people you should be networking with. So we are happy to provide you with Bee City and Campus USA brochures and bookmarks for you to conduct your outreach with. We'll have a picture of those on a later slide for you. So for cities, you could do outreach at libraries, farmers markets, native plant nurseries, senior centers and churches, friends groups, so that could be at parks, nature preserves, or wildlife refuges, and then chambers of commerce. And for campus, you can do outreach at a campus coffee shop or store, or even just put flyers up or give them some brochures to give out. Club meetings, career fairs, and STEM nights are all great places. You can talk to other nearby affiliates to get ideas. You can find their contact information on our affiliates page on our website, or we are happy to make connections for you. And with that, I'm going to pass it back to Laura.
Okay, thank you so much, Carly. So I'm going to talk about once you're formed, once you've become, you have your kind of ball rolling and you're looking at building your committee itself. As you go through the application, sometimes your committee makeup may shift because the campaign may be a different crowd than who becomes your permanent Bee City or Bee Campus committee. So there is room for adjustments, but kind of the common makeup we see with a Bee City committee is there's a couple different kind of categories of committee types. One is the committee actually forms out of an existing city committee or advisory group, such as parks, tree committee. Sometimes it's the Rotary Club or Keep Blank Beautiful. If you have like a Keep like Smithville Beautiful organization, sometimes they actually end up housing the Bee City Committee. So they basically just switch hats during their meetings and say, now we're acting as Bee City. And then they conduct that sort of business under that, within that committee. You could also be a new subcommittee of one of these committees. And then occasionally we actually see these committees housed within a nonprofit. So that's an option too, if for any reason the city doesn't have the structure to allow for a new committee to be formed. They can give permission for the committee to be housed within a nonprofit. Common committee members that we like to see and think could be good options are like Director of Parks, the city arborists, the local garden club members, retired professors who may be experts on some of the topics here. Some towns, it's the mayor serves on the committee. Often master gardeners choose to be on the committee, native plant nursery owners, honeybee keepers even. And usually, though they may be raising honeybees for this work, they're focusing on native bees. We have a couple where there's high schoolers who join with their parent, and we love to see that. I think it's really important to engage the next generation in this work and empower them to lead. Oftentimes, city councilors or their staff will be on the committee. Parks Foundation volunteers often serve, and pretty commonly we see city secretaries or even city managers serving. So you can get a little creative, but these are some of the kind of, I think, strong choices for committee members. And one technique we see with some of our larger affiliates, like San Diego, is they have a coalition of representatives from various nonprofits that are relevant. So that can be a good approach if you can kind of treat this committee as kind of a council of different representatives. So that's just another choice you can make if that works for you. Examples of committee makeups for Bee Campus. It's about, again, pretty open-ended. Pretty often we see like biology clubs or sustainability councils leading, kind of just acting as the committee. Sometimes it's campus farm or community garden leadership. As Carly mentioned, we do like to see grounds and landscape managers or directors on board. Somebody who's going to be doing on the ground work so they understand the commitments and they're a part of these commitments. Pretty commonly, we see biology professors and other relevant departments like landscape designers. And then we see undergrads, PhD candidates, even vice president's office staff members. So we do encourage you to kind of think outside the box and bring in different departments. So there's no rules about it. Doesn't have to be someone who specializes in sustainability. So think broadly and bring in anyone who feels like they could contribute and enjoy this experience and help out. My only tip, kind of big recommendation here is please don't just make the committee a full class of students. There's just so much turnover with students. We do really need to have kind of a smaller group. You know, I'd say generally I'd like to see a committee between like 5 to 10 members for both city and campus. But that's a suggestion. It can be a little smaller or a bit bigger. But if it's a whole class, it tends to get a little messy. So we love to see students involved, but the committee should not just be students. We really do need to have some more permanent campus leadership or faculty and staff involved just to make sure things carry through year to year. Tips for creating a strong committee, both at the beginning, all the way through once you're certified and are with us for years. We ask that you meet regularly. So we don't have an assigned time of how many times you need to meet, but just have a consistent schedule, something predictable. And then we really think it's valuable to assign tasks and responsibilities up front. And, you know, once you assign those tasks, it's important to give each other grace and understand that people may carry out a task in a way that you might find different or imperfect, but we really do need to share responsibilities for these programs to be strong. We can't just have one person doing it all. If you want to create a resilient committee that lasts, you need to share the workload and kind of just get things going and allow for human error and different choices just to make sure things are actually happening and you're meeting the commitments and your community is improving, becoming healthier for pollinators. Record keeping is super important. And luckily, we do have a spreadsheet on our renewal tab when you have your application login and everything. Carly made a great spreadsheet that breaks down our whole renewal report as a spreadsheet so you can actually enter events and stats throughout the year. So you actually can hold on to that information. You don't have to last second gather it during our renewal season each year. And it's also important just so you know what you're working on and you don't lose track of projects and plantings. So record keeping, very good idea. From the get-go, plan for turnover. As much as we like to think that we're going to be able to stay in a project we love, life happens and sometimes people move on. So have a plan for how you're going to transition if somebody steps down, who's going to take over those roles, how are you going to recruit new members, how do you train them, and make sure that you introduce new people to staff and elected officials when they're new, when you're new. Just keep the communication going. You don't want to do this stuff in the dark. It's much easier if people know about your great work. It's important to brag. And then a big component too is make sure you ask for what you need. You ask your community if you need money, if you need supplies, if you need volunteers. Ask leadership. Can you help with this? Just make sure that you're communicating what you need to succeed. So you're not feeling like you're fighting alone. Let people know so they can help. Okay, and so now we're going to jump into how our affiliates have carried out the commitments of Bee City. I have 2 examples of each of the main commitments. So starting off, we're going to talk about some habitat projects our affiliates have done, 2 different kind of scales of project. First off, Round Rock, Texas. has these stormwater detention ponds, and they have been seeding them with pollinator plants in this really beautiful way. It's pictured at the top there. And it's been a very successful project, and they do seeds, so it's a little cheaper than doing plant plugs. So this has been something that they've really enjoyed doing, has been well received. So they're continuing to seed detention ponds around the city each year. So a beautiful way to kind of have some multi-purpose habitat. And then on a smaller scale, Triton College, Illinois, has added bioswales as they've redone parking lots. They have 18 mini bioswales with native plants and trees in parking lots. And then they have pictured here in the bottom this beautiful kind of stream flowing through a walkway where it's just pollinator plants lining this whole long walkway. So it's a bioswale, much like the detention pond, it's serving a multifunction purpose here, but on a smaller scale. And that's a great way to beautify campus and also just show off your native plants and just the local flora of your community. So your community is going to look like itself. You're not going to look like a generic campus. You're going to look like your own region. Outreach. So pollinator conservation outreach, as Carly said, it can look like a million things, but one that I really love to see is bioblitzes. I just did one last week here in Milwaukee, Oregon. And in Pinellas County, Florida, our second largest bee city, they're actually a county, Bee City County, which we do allow for. They have bioblitzes at a centrally located park. They partnered with a local college to plan and execute the BioBlitz. They focused on pollinators specifically for this. They invited 35 community scientists to help guide the public. And basically what they do is just for a few hours, you get volunteers, families, individuals to come together at a set location and try to ID as many species as they can in that window, in that region. And oftentimes you upload your data to something like iNaturalist, which I really encourage using. And you people can upload their identifications. It gets volunteer scientists will go through and try to verify identifications. And then you have that great data set of what pollinator species are found. For Pinellas County, they observed 777 different times while they were out. And of that, they had 289 different species of pollinators and host plants. So very cool approach, very successful. And we love to see stuff like this. And it's a reoccurring event that they've really enjoyed doing. This is a great way to kind of measure your progress for how much you're helping enhance pollinator habitat. Another great outreach approach that we love to see is putting up interpretive signs. So these are some examples from University of Minnesota Twin Cities with their Bee Lab pollinator garden. And so they have two different things here. One is action items telling people how they can help, how they can participate. And the other is talking about what bees they might see in their area, and then a little bit on other pollinators. So this is nice because it's like having a scientist standing out in your garden all the time, 24/7. This can be a really effective way to reach community members year-round for a relatively low cost. So we highly recommend interpretive signs. Pesticide reduction is very core to what we do. We really encourage you to take this on in many different ways in your community. One thing that we've seen a lot of our affiliates adopt over the years is purchasing a weed steamer. It's basically, it's usually diesel powered from what I've seen. They're, I think, usually like $2,000 to $5,000 for a big piece of equipment like this. And basically it works just like you would use like a wand sprayer, but it's just steamed water. And you just hold it over the weeds and it just boils basically the plant and it kills the weed seeds. So basically what you're left with is just a little bit of compost that breaks down naturally. So I think this is a really graceful approach. It doesn't require a lot of staff training. You can it's kind of a plug and play replacement for a wand spray of pesticides. So this is fun, really a fun one. This is a quote from University of Wisconsin talking about what I just said about how it cooks the weed. And then in the pictures here, that's from another of our affiliates, the city of Wilsonville here in Oregon, and they love their weed steamer. Another great approach for pollinator conservation or for pesticide reduction is including volunteers in maintenance. As Carly mentioned, oftentimes city staff, they're working with limited time and money. So if you can have consistent volunteer support where they're willing to go out and hand weed at city parks, that can be a really huge gift to staff with the city. So it takes the pressure off so they don't feel as much urgency with maybe feeling like they need to turn to pesticides if they know they've got volunteers who know how to identify a weed and are going to be consistently available. That can do a lot. So in Seaside, California, they're actually pesticide free at all their city parks. And one of the ways they're able to do that is every Saturday, volunteers meet and pull weeds and plant habitat. It's all organized by Friends of Seaside Parks. They have 11 parks that they do this at, and on average, they have about 20 volunteers attending. So you can see a couple of their volunteer work parties here. And they say, we continue to avoid the use of sprays and keep up on weeding through routine maintenance and mulching. Best practices are shared with all new volunteers. All work is done by hand. So they have a lot of fun too. So stuff like this, I think, is kind of a great way to build community, create a sense of personal ownership for how we maintain our municipal lands and make people feel like they have control and buy-in and a way to help. And it's really meaningful to help city staff, so it's not just all on them. All right, so we're wrapping up here. So I'm just going to share some free resources that you're welcome to use whether or not you become a Bee City or Bee Campus at xerces.org/publications. You can find free native plant lists, monarch nectar plant lists, and many, many more resources for creating habitat and reducing pesticides and all sorts of stuff. On the Bee City website, we have free bookmarks and brochures in Spanish and English on our application page towards the bottom. You can print them yourself or email us to get some free copies mailed. And then, as Carly mentioned, we have an IPM, an Integrated Pest Management Plan Toolkit at bcityusa.org/IPM-plan. And that has a template IPM plan you're welcome to use whether or not you join Bee City or Bee Campus. So I encourage you to check that out. There's lots of great tips on non-chemical pest and weed management and lots of other great resources there. And with that, I just wanted to say thank you for joining us. So I have a parade of parades here from our affiliates. A lot of great bee costumes are just one of the beautiful side effects of becoming a Bee City or Bee Campus. We see lots of fun costumes. If you have any questions, you can put them in the Q&A, and you can also email us at bcityusa@xerces.org or visit bcityusa.org to learn more. And with that, I will turn it over to Carly.
Thanks, Laura. We had one question so far in the Q&A. Christine is wondering, she says, I volunteered at botanical gardens. Have you ever considered including organizations like botanical gardens or arboretums in your certification?
Yeah, so if they're associated with a university or college, yes. We do have, I think, about 3 bee campuses that are actually botanical gardens. No, more than that, I guess, because some of them, the certification is the whole campus or the whole university, and some are just like certain campuses of the university. So we see both. So like University of Texas at Austin, Lady Bird Johnson Wildflower Center is technically part of their certification. And then, yeah, and then a couple different campuses around the country as well are just the Arboretum or Botanical Garden is certified. We don't have one that can be just for like a nonprofit-led botanical garden. We just, if we were to expand that way, we would just not have the capacity to oversee that many botanical gardens that would likely apply. So just to pace ourselves and grow in a way that keeps our strength up, we have to kind of keep our focus to Bee City USA and Bee Campus USA for now. But you're welcome to carry out the Bee City or Bee Campus, the Bee City work at like a botanical garden within that city. We see the commitments carried out on public and private land, so both are great.
Thanks, Laura. Matthew?
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to mention another campaign that Xerces Society has, which is our Bring Back the Pollinators campaign, which actually it follows exactly the same principles, and Bee City in a way is based upon it, because when Phyllis was creating Bee City, she was in conversation with us. And that's one reason why when Phyllis came to us some years ago and said, "Hey, I need to retire, will you take it?" We were like, "Yes, of course." But anybody can participate in the Bring Back the Pollinators campaign, whether you're a gardener, a community gardener, a park, a grade school, a botanical garden, etc., etc., etc. And so you can go to bringbackthepollinators.org, and that'll take you to the page on the Xerces website, which has more information, the 4 principles of uh, growing the nectar flowers, having the egg laying and the nesting sites, avoiding pesticides, and share the word. You'll also find the pollinator protection pledge that you can sign up, and you can add your garden, whether that's a botanic garden, a personal garden, or whatever, to the Bring Back the Pollinators map and be part of a much bigger community pursuing pollinator conservation.
Yeah, and Bee Cities and Bee Campuses are welcome to take the pledge as well. So they're not exclusive. It all helps.
Yeah.
Thank you, Laura and Matthew. Well, we have some thank yous in the chat, but I don't see any other open questions. So unless someone wants to submit a question to the question and answer, I think we might be able to wrap up here. Give a few
All right.
seconds.
Well, thank you everyone for joining us. And if you decide you do have a question, feel free to reach out anytime. We're here to support you and help your community succeed, and whatever that looks like. We want to help you reduce pesticides and increase pollinator habitat. So please feel free to reach out, and we can point you in the direction of some resources or share some advice or connect you with affiliates in your area too.
All right. Hope you all have a great rest of your day. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Hi.